Hey everyone, so on this video we have the Nothing Phone 3a going to the PhoneUX Protocol. And this is actually going to be a first for a budget phone going through it, and I'm very curious on how it's going to turn out. Hope you are too. Let's dive right in. So the first thing that I think is worth mentioning is that this is a larger screen, the one that's on the larger side. So that's kind of like what we have to think about when we're doing this whole ergonomics thing that we're going to be talking about right now. So when I pick it up, obviously it's the bigger phone, so it's going to be a bit wider. It's actually pretty light for the size. It feels like it's not putting too much pressure on my pinky. Of course, it's still going to be more than a smaller phone, but it's very comfortable to hold. A couple of things is that it has the plastic rail, which is actually the most comfortable rail that I've used. So you don't get any heat or cold radiating from it that you normally would on metal phones, metal rails. It has a softer feel to it than metal because obviously it's plastic, it's softer. So it kind of feels like a soft touch almost, and again that adds to the comfort. And also very smooth in the bottom, which, you know, plastic could still be sharp, so they did a good job in keeping it pretty smooth. The USB-C does provide a little bit of a sharp edge on the inside, but it's not sharp enough to actually bother. So yeah, because of the weight, it will eventually be tiring to hold it for long periods of time, but you have a couple other things helping out. The plastic rail, another thing is that it's not as slippery as matte aluminum, and then it has the glass back, which is glossy, but you don't really notice too much because it's clear. But because it's glossy, you do get more friction, so it helps you to kind of alleviate the pressure on the pinky in the bottom. And then the other thing that I wanted to point out is that the buttons are actually placed lower on the phone than what other phones tend to do. So this makes it very easy to reach all the buttons without having to adjust your hand to reach them higher. So in terms of ergonomics, I'm giving the Nothing Phone 3a an 8 out of 10, which is a really good score, especially for a large phone. The next category is going to be the camera speed. And this is one of the ones that I kind of expect some different results because it doesn't have the premium flagship chips in it. So it's going to expectedly be slower. All right, so from the double tap quick start, let's see how long it takes. And it takes a bit. It takes even longer than Samsung's, which has been the slowest flagship startup that I've seen from the quick start setup. One thing I did notice with the Samsung is that it started up faster when I opened it from the main app in the home screen. So let's see how that behaves here. Okay, so it is faster, just like I experienced with the Samsung and a couple other phones as well. But it's still a bit of a delay when it's starting up. Now while in the app, let's try out the shutter speed and let's see. Alright, so the shutter speed or reaction is very quick, very good. The follow-up though, I do feel vibration, but I don't always see the blackout on the picture, so you don't really get a visual letting you know that it took a picture. You just get the haptic feedback letting you know that it took the picture. All right, the next thing is going to be how quickly it switches to different modes, and it's a one swipe per mode, which Apple used to be like that as well, and I forgot there was another one that was like that too, and that is going to slow you down big time. So if you got to go all the way to the end, it's going to take you a bit or many swipes. The positive thing here is that you can organize them how you want it, so hopefully you're only one or two swipes away from the mode that you need. And then lastly, let's take a look at the 50 megapixel mode, which some phones struggle with. And it's honestly, it feels almost or just as fast as the 12 megapixel mode. So I'll give that's a big plus for this phone. And so for the camera speed, the Nothing 3a gets a 7 out of 10. All right, so the next category is going to be the haptics. And again, this is another one where budget phones can sometimes struggle with. So let's see how it does. The first thing that I will tell you is that it is customizable. So that's a plus to have there. It's not as detailed as some of the other phones, but it has a low, medium, and high. I will kind of caution against the high because I noticed, or it felt sounded like it was introducing some rattle on the high mode. The medium, which is what comes out of the box, is okay, but it still feels kind of hollow. And in fact, I moved it to the low, and to me that one felt the best because it just felt like it was giving you a little tap, and that's all you really need. Now the other thing is that it doesn't give you as many haptic feedbacks as I've seen on other phones. You don't get the in-between volume, which a lot of the phones don't do that, but you get it on the top and bottom, so that's pretty good. You get it when you hold home for a circle to search, but only when it starts. Other phones have like a build-up that lets you know that you are holding it and that it's gonna start soon, and then a pop when it starts. So for the haptics, I give it a 6 out of 10. Now we're gonna be moving into the immersion. So the first thing is starting with the speakers, and they are well balanced, honestly, which is surprising for a budget phone. They sound really good, give you a good overall sound between highs, mediums, and lows, but the lows are a bit lacking. They're there and enough to give you what you need, but they don't give you, like, it's not keeping up with the flagships in that sense. The top speaker actually keeps up pretty well with the bottom speaker with the highs and mids, which what we've seen from the other videos, that's kind of all it can really keep up with. But now moving on to the screen. A couple of things to note: it has slightly larger bezels than you would find on a flagship phone, but I would say it's probably a bit smaller than you would see on budget phones of similar prices. And the second thing is that the bezels are all symmetrical, they're even, which is a big plus. Of course, the punch hole is way up high and stays out of the way when you're watching a video. The brightness is actually really good and keeps up with most flagships. Honestly, you're gonna have a great experience watching videos, and when you step outside, you're gonna have zero issues using the phone outdoors in direct sunlight. And then I also find that the colors are very nice. They're appealing colors. The color science is good on the phone, and it has enough resolution to give you a good experience. So it's not QHD, so you're not gonna have the ultra sharp screen, but it's at the point where it meets the minimum requirements to be a good screen. So for the immersion, I would give it a very good 8 out of 10. And then the last thing I'm gonna talk about is the multitasking. And it's Android, so you're gonna have at least a basic multitasking, and this has it. So you can have the two apps doing the 50-50 split. It has not adopted the 90-10 split. Maybe it will in the future, but for now it doesn't have it. But it's still fine. The 50-50, you can still adjust it a little bit. So we start the split screen here. Do the 50-50 is what it starts at. You can't bring it down there, but you can't do the whole 90-10 because right there it already wants to get rid of the top one. So we go back to 50-50, and you can have a pop-up. With the pop-up, you can resize it. I think, yeah, you hold the corner, drag it, and you can resize it. It starts too small in my opinion, but it's all right. And then from here, you click the minimize, and it puts it into a shelf, kind of like OnePlus did. As you can see there again, it starts off small, but then you minimize it, and now you have two apps here. Plus, you can have the split screen come back up, and so you have the split screen and the two floating apps. You tap it there, it comes back up, and in the same size that you left it at, so it's really good. So for the multitasking, I would give it a 5 out of 10, which is a very solid score for a slab phone. Alright, so when we add all these up, the Nothing Phone 3A gets a what I would consider a solid 34 out of 50. It is not really keeping up with any of the flagships. It's off by a couple points here and there, but the fact that it's so close on some of the more important features, I would say it's an awesome phone considering the price was so low compared to flagships. I appreciate you watching. If you have any different scores, let me know in the comments. That would be fun to discuss. I hope you enjoyed the video, and for the next one, I'm going to be covering the Pixel 9 Pro, so be sure to subscribe for future videos.